Tomas here, and today we're going to be going to one of what I think is the most magical places in Ireland, Cathair Con Roí. You can see it up here behind me. It combines mythology, it combines history, it combines archaeology, and of course it combines hiking. As you can see, there's a bit of a pull going up to it. It's in the Slievmish mountain range, a mountain range themselves named for a mythological character, Mish, who was among the Milesians, a wave of invaders that came to Ireland. They were the last wave of invaders that came to Ireland. They defeated the magical Tuatha Dé Danann, otherwise known as the gods of the Old Irish. But when the Milesians came, they managed to defeat the Tuatha Dé Danann. But unfortunately, Mish met her death here on this mountain range, and that's why it's called Slievmish. Behind me, Caherconree Con Roí rises up. The name itself, Cathair Con Roí, Con Roí means the fort of Curoi. Curoi MacDara was a very, very powerful magician in Munster. He features in tales in the Ulster cycle as well. His fame was so widespread that he actually plays a part in the tales with Cuchulainn and the guys up there in Ulster. And he also features in some tales in Brittany, believe it or not. So he was a very, very powerful character. Some people believe he was an ancestor god for the tribes in Munster. He was a member of the Éireann, the population group here in Munster. But we're going to be going up there. The weather's nice, the cloud seems to be lifting. We should get some stunning views around the Dingle Peninsula when we get up there. Let's see what happens. Just wanted to point out a couple of things that I think are really interesting about this walk and about this particular place, Cathair Con Roí. The first of them is the actual Cathair itself, the actual fort itself up there. Now, it's obviously what we see here is not man-made, they're natural cliffs, but they're very imposing, they're very forbidding looking, and from down here you could almost imagine that what we're looking at is a man-made structure by a very powerful magician. The next thing is the river that comes down from the side of the hill here. That is called the Fionglásha, which means the White Brook, and it plays a part in the most famous legend about Curoi MacDara. Unfortunately, the most famous legend about Curoi MacDara is the one where he dies. He has a battle with Cuchulainn from Ulster, and Cuchulainn, being Cuchulainn, wins, as he always does in the Ulster tales. At first, Curoi helps Cuchulainn, but as payment, Curoi tricks Cuchulainn and takes the love of Cuchulainn's life at the time, Blonid. And as he's coming south with Blonid, Cuchulainn catches up with him and they have a fierce battle somewhere in Tipperary, according to the version that I like from the famous storyteller Bob Fairtear, God rest her soul. And Bob tells the tale in Irish and uses some of the kind of the runs and the root that happen in Irish folk tales and happen in oral folk tales all over the world. And one of the ones that I particularly like and that my kids like when I tell them the tale as well is the bhí córach éonar íochmhar atartha an son. The dhéanamh der talamh cruaig den talamh bug den talamh cruaig agus de haring iadar a níos na typica fíorchce trína tlochad lasa. Ag an derad a bhí an bua ag Curoi MacDara, de leg sé Cuchulainn chun talún agus de ghearr sé a olt cruaige agus de chuimil sé búltach bó ina aig. Which in plain English means the two of them fought and Curoi MacDara won. But being an oral tale, it has this nice lilt to it. And it keeps the ear going and keeps the ear interested. So Curoi comes back down here with Blonid. Blonid being very unhappy, being kept up there in his castle, and she tricks him. She gets him to send all his warriors to collect rocks to make a better castle, because she says that such a warrior, such a magician, such a hero as Curoi couldn't possibly be living in such a shabby castle as he has. And when the warriors are gone, Blonid and Cuchulainn have a plan where when this river, the Fionglásha, turns white, he knows that it's safe to go up and attack, and that's exactly what she does. She incapacitates Curoi and then pours milk into the river to turn it white. And on seeing this, Cuchulainn, who had been hiding in the valley below the castle, runs up and defeats Curoi. Well, we're about an hour into the walk and we're up here just underneath Cathair Con Roí, the fort itself. Right here are the cliffs that we could see when we were down below that look so imposing, and I just wanted to stop here to give you a bit of an idea of the view that you can get from here. I'll just spin the camera around so you can see we can see the south side of the Dingle Peninsula there. Crossing the Dingle Peninsula, we get a nice view of the entire thing. You can can see it's a bit hazy, but there we have the north side of the Dingle Peninsula. The ocean on both sides. It really is a gorgeous view. And you can see why Curoi might have wanted to have his fort up here. We can also see that there's a ridge coming straight up at us, and then that ridge turns into the bits of cliff here that go up to the top, to the plateau. And it's actually sitting on a major fault line that goes some way across the Dingle Peninsula. You can see how there's more hills along the fault line. Then we have a basin in the center. I'm not sure if that's coming out very well, but there's a basin in the center. And then we have another fault line where there's another series of hills. It's one of the main geological features of the Dingle Peninsula. And the fault line comes all the way up here and into Cathair Con Roí. So we've talked about the mythology of the area. We've talked about Curoi building his fort up here, his castle, with its magical property of not being able to be invaded because of it spinning around all the time, and the eventual death of Curoi at the hands of Cuchulainn and Blonnet. Now we're going to go up onto the plateau itself. We'll take a look up there and we'll see that in actual fact it's not all mythology. There's a good bit of archaeology going on up there too, and I'll show it to you in a second. Well, here we are up on the plateau above the cliffs that we were looking at earlier on, and what I wanted to show you up here, apart from the occasional sheep, is something that I think is extraordinary. It is a stone wall that goes all the way from one side of the plateau to the other, and this is a big stone wall. In places it's nearly 3 meters high, it's over 100 meters long, and it provides complete fortification on this side of the plateau. On the other two sides of the triangular plateau we have cliffs. So it's a plateau that's completely fortified from 3 sides. Because there's cliffs on 2 of the sides, it's known as a promontory fort, and it's one of Ireland's highest. The highest, I believe, is on the Faher Ridge just below Mount Brandon. But here we have a fort at 683 meters above sea level. Now it raises all kinds of questions for me. What were they doing? What was the purpose of a fort up here? We can see here, looking at this section of the wall, that there seems to have been a rampart on the inner side of the wall, which would lead to believe that it was defensive in nature, that there were going to be defenders standing on the inner ledge of this wall trying to repel attackers. So the theory is that maybe this was a refuge of last resort for the local people. If all else failed, they could retire up here. It would not have been a very pleasant place to think that you were going to make your last stand. Life must have been very dangerous at the time, to say that they put this much effort into creating such a structure on the chance that they were going to need it. It's thought to be Iron Age. The Iron Age in Ireland lasted from roughly 500 BC to 500 AD. So I would imagine probably the earlier part of the Iron Age. It looks like, I think they've dated the fort on the Faher Ridge at the other side of the Dingle Peninsula to late Bronze Age, early in Iron Age, so perhaps this is roughly of the same date. So this is why I think this area is so magical. 2 things coming together, 2 amazing things: the mythology of the area with Curoi and Cuchulainn and Blonnet and his magic fort being up here, but obviously the mythology was based on an existing fort that was an actual archaeological site. This amazing fortification at 683 meters above sea level on a promontory with 2 sheer cliffs, and this wall forming some sort of a defensive structure. If you can figure out what was going on, answers on a postcard please, because I think a lot of archaeologists would be very interested in talking to you. So we're a little bit above the hill fort now, and I just wanted to give you a view of it from up here. You can see a bit better perhaps than I was able to explain it to you, how you have the stone wall at one end and then the cliffs at the other 2 sides of the triangle, forming a very secure defensive structure. Again, what they were defending themselves against, we'll never know. That's one of the things that I guess you have to live with when you like archaeology and when you like mythology. There are certain questions and we will just never know the answers to them, and this is one of them. Back to the mythology for a bit. It doesn't have a happy ending for Cuchulainn and for Blonnet, I'm afraid. Cuchulainn does defeat Curoi MacDara and kills him, but as he is escaping with Blonnet on horseback, Curoi MacDara's harper, I believe it is, for Cethna, exacts revenge. And as Blonnet is on the horse beside a cliff, or resting beside a cliff, for Cethna leaps at Blonnet from his hiding place, grabs her, and both of them plummet to their deaths over a cliff. And you can see again around here why the motif of a cliff death would be quite a useful one to have, seeing as there are quite a number of them around here. But Cuchulainn doesn't spend the rest of his life with Blonnet. As we know from the other Ulster tales, he is in fact married to a woman called Ever, who is a powerful enough woman in her own right that Blonnet was probably better off not to go back to Ulster with Cuchulainn and meet Cuchulainn's actual wife. But anyway, that's again a tale for another time. You get a very nice view here of the wall of the fort and of the cliffs on the side of the fort as well, so you can see why it's a promontory fort. Sticks out, mostly promontory forts stick out into the ocean, because that's where you find the most cliffs, I guess, triangular type of cliffs like this with a wall on one side. And if you want to check out promontory forts, I'd really recommend, if you're up in Achill, check out Tomás McLaughlin. He's a great guide up there, and he does fantastic kayaking trips out to the islands around Achill, and he'll show you some great forts out there. But this is an inland promontory fort, so called obviously because there's no ocean here at the sides of the cliffs. It's an inland series of cliffs together with the wall, and as you can see, forms a very good defensive structure. I wouldn't want to be the person trying to break into this particular fort, but then again, I wouldn't want to be the people who for some reason decided that they needed to get into the fort either, because of some pressing danger that there was outside. Well, we're on our way down now, and I just wanted to give you one last look at Caherconree Con Roí at the fort. You can see it there behind me, and I just wanted to also thank you for joining me on the trip up and down. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I was able to give you some indication of the magic that is to be found up in these type of places, where myth and archaeology and hiking and the outdoors and everything just combine to make a place like no other on earth, I think. So there you go. That's Cathair Con Roí, the fort of Curoi MacDara, and, as it happens, the location of an Iron Age promontory fort. I'll see you next time.